One morning, Karu Sakamachi is rudely awakened by his sister Kurat in her usual, painfully rough way. Her aggressive wake-up call leaves him with a nosebleed, but after grumbling about it, he joins her for breakfast. Kira explains that she does this to keep herself in shape, while their mother, a successful wrestler, is away abroad. At school, Karu notices Subaru, the most popular guy in school, escorting Kanade, a prestigious student he serves as a butler. Karu meets up with his friend Yamato, who is jealous of Subaru's close relationship with Kanade. When a girl approaches Karu at school, he jumps back in fear, causing Yamato to wonder if Karu is more interested in boys since he always avoids girls. Karu quickly denies it and rushes to the restroom, but on his way, he bumps into another girl, making his situation even worse. In the restroom, Karu tries to calm himself down, but when he opens a stall door, he finds himself face to face with Subaru, who is just getting up from the toilet. Karu is shocked to see that Subaru is wearing girly panties and assumes he's a pervert. Panicked, Karu tries to leave, but Subaru, determined to keep his secret, decides to knock him out. However, Karu, toughened by his family, resists the attack and starts running, with Subaru chasing after him. Their chase leads them to an abandoned classroom, where a large glass jar tips over, falling towards Subaru's head. Karu quickly pushes Subaru out of the way, but in doing so, he ends up on top of him. During the scuffle, Karu accidentally gropes Subaru's chest, realizing in that moment that Subaru is actually a girl. Shocked and embarrassed, Karu starts bleeding from his nose, thinking he's a pervert. Subaru, furious and determined to silence Karu for good, grabs a nearby fire extinguisher and knocks him out. When Karu wakes up, he finds himself chained to a bed in the nurse's office, with Kanade by his side. Kanade reveals that she brought him here and bribed the nurse to leave them alone. She explains that Subaru's family has served hers for generations, and since there was no male heir in Subaru's family, Subaru pretended to be a boy to continue the tradition of being Kanade's butler. However, with Karu discovering Subaru's secret, Kanade isn't sure what to do with him. She pulls back a curtain to reveal Subaru, also tied up and still determined to make Karu disappear. To keep her secret and continue being Kanade's butler, Subaru agrees to an alternative plan. Kanade starts teasing Karu and soon discovers his secret. He gets nosebleeds whenever he's close to a girl. To make things right, Kanade offers to help Karu overcome his fear of girls, in exchange for his silence about Subaru's true identity. With no better options, Karu reluctantly agrees to the deal. At school, Yamato warns Karu that he's become the target of Subaru's fan club, who are upset about how much time he's spending with her. Karu brushes off the warning, but it soon proves true when a fan club member tries to attack him. Fortunately, another group from a different Subaru fan club steps in to save him. Initially relieved, Karu quickly becomes uncomfortable when he learns that these fans believe he and Subaru are a couple and are curious about who's in charge. Aware of the situation, Kanade tries to make it up to Karu by giving him a special service ticket, which allows him to command Subaru to do anything he wants. When Karu hears this, he can't help but have some mischievous thoughts. The next day, Karu is surprised when he's called to an arcade with Subaru. It turns out Kanade wants them to go on a date to help Karu deal with his nosebleed problem. Though confused at first, Karu doesn't mind the idea, especially when he sees how cute Subaru looks in girly clothes. Since she's never been to an arcade before, Karu shows her around and wins a cute sheep plush toy for her. During their time together, Karu reveals that his nosebleed started because his mother and sister used him as a punching bag for their martial arts training when he was young, only stopping when his nose bled. Subaru reassures him that he will get over his condition eventually. Their sweet moment is interrupted when Kanade calls Subaru and instructs her to begin the next step of the plan. Subaru obeys, teasing Karu in getting closer to him as Kanade instructed. Surprised by her sudden closeness, Karu pulls out the service ticket. Though shocked, Subaru has no choice but to follow whatever command he gives. When Karu realizes that Subaru will truly do anything he asks, his thoughts turn lewd, but he quickly clears his head and instead orders her to make a sheep-like sound. Subaru reluctantly obeys, but to get back at him for the embarrassment, she gives him a tight hug. Just then, Kira, who had been secretly following them, jumps out from behind a bush and kicks Karu. She mistakenly thinks that Subaru is a crossdresser involved in an intimate relationship with her brother. Furious, she demands that Subaru hand Karu over and picks a fight with her. Much to Kira's surprise, Subaru fights back and sends her flying. Defeated and upset, Kira runs home in tears, ending their date. When Karu returns home, he finds that Kira has taken out her frustrations on her plush toy, so he carefully stitches it back together. The next day, when Subaru comes to pick Karu up for school, Karu avoids her without saying a word, still shaken by what happened. Since Karu didn't explain the situation to Kira, things remain tense. At school, it's time for the yearly body measurements, which makes Karu nervous. He worries that Subaru will be checked in front of the other guys and wonders how she'll handle it. However, Kanade, who usually helps with their schemes, decides to sit this one out to see how they'll handle it on their own. When Karu notices that Subaru doesn't have a solid plan to avoid being discovered, he jumps in front of the nurse and insists that he'll take Subaru's measurements himself. The confused nurse agrees, but when it's Karu's turn, he remembers his own problem of being around girls. To help him avoid contact with another girl, Subaru jumps in and insists that she'll measure him instead. This immediately catches the attention of the other boys in the room, especially when Karu tries to take control of the next part of the examination as well. Running out of ideas, he suddenly hugs Subaru, which triggers a nosebleed, causing him to pass out. Thanks to that, both of them are excused from the rest of the physical examination. When Karu regains consciousness, he's surprised that Subaru invites him to lunch. Unfortunately, this only makes Subaru's fan club even more upset with him. During lunch, Subaru confides that she's never had any friends at school to eat with because she was always by Kanade's side, and she's glad to finally have someone she can consider a friend. Relaxed and feeling safe, Subaru dozes off on Karu's shoulder. When Karu returns home, he's caught off guard by another surprise. Kira declares that she's fallen in love with Subaru after their fight. The next day, Subaru comes to pick Karu up again, but this time Kira, who happens to be coming out of the bath, notices and decides to follow them to school, spying on Karu. When Karu meets up with Kanade to explain what happened, Kanade quickly spots Kira spying on them. Instead of revealing the truth, Kanade tells Kira that she's in a relationship with Karu, and that Subaru is also in love with him, which completely shocks Kira. To make her story more convincing, Kanade reveals where Karu's birthmark is, which is enough to convince Kira. Kanade even jokes that Kira might become her little sister, leaving Kira even more bewildered. In the future, Kanade invites Karu, Subaru, and Kira to a double date at the water park. Upon arriving, they quickly notice how seriously Subaru is taking her role as Kanade's protector. After they change into their swimsuits, Kira asks Subaru to teach her how to swim, wanting some alone time with her. This leaves Kanade and Karu by themselves. Taking advantage of the moment, Kanade tells Karu about how she and Subaru were kidnapped at this very water park when they were kids. Although the police resolved the situation without any issues, Subaru has distanced herself from Kanade ever since, feeling responsible for not being able to protect her as her butler. This incident also caused Subaru to develop a phobia, similar to the one Karu struggles with. But instead of diving deeper into the story, Kanade drags Karu along to various water slides, determined to tackle his phobia head-on. Once they're done, they swap partners, leaving Karu and Subaru alone together. As they chat, they suddenly spot a girl drowning in one of the pools. Without hesitation, Karu jumps into the pool and saves the girl. However, Her clinging to him triggers another intense nosebleed, causing him to lose consciousness. While unconscious, Karu dreams of a conversation he had with his late father, who taught him to be someone reliable, someone who could confidently tell someone important to stand by his side and protect them. When Karu wakes up, he finds Subaru watching over him. But their moment is interrupted by a kid who delivers a phone to Subaru. The phone rings, revealing a masked individual who shows them that he has kidnapped Kanade and Kira. He demands that Subaru come to a nearby location without alerting the police. To prove he means business, he pulls out a large knife before ending the call. Karu notices that Subaru is completely distraught after seeing the knife, and he realizes this must be connected to the phobia Kanade mentioned earlier. To prevent Subaru from facing the armed kidnapper in such a state, Karu knocks her out and goes to the meeting point on his own. At the destination, the kidnapper wastes no time revealing himself and starts beating Karu up, saying that he'll use him as entertainment until Subaru arrives. Thanks to all the beatings Karu has endured from his family, he manages to hold on long enough for Subaru to arrive and save him before the kidnapper can finish him off. Despite the kidnapper's large knife, Subaru overcomes her phobia and fights back to protect Karu, ultimately knocking the masked villain out. When they rescue Kanade and Kira from where they were held captive, it's revealed that the kidnapper is none other than Subaru's own father. This whole scenario was a ploy set up by Kanade to help Subaru overcome her fear and to bring them closer together again. After all the beatings, Karu finally passes out. When he wakes up, he finds himself in Kanade's manor. Kanade apologizes for putting him through the ordeal and thanks him for helping out. She also reveals that Subaru was actually her first love, so she was desperate to get close to her again. After Kanade leaves, Subaru enters the room. Instead of being angry at Karu for knocking her out, she hugs him and confesses how worried she was about losing him to the kidnapper. Karu is the first real friend she's ever made. Realizing how much he worried Subaru, Karu apologizes. Remembering his father's words, he silently vows to get stronger so she will never cry because of him again. Just then, Kira bursts into the room and sees them close together. She immediately jumps to the conclusion that her brother is trying to seduce Subaru, even though he's supposedly dating Kanade. When Subaru hears that Karu is in a relationship with Kanade, she flips out too. Panicked, Karu makes a quick escape through the window. Golden Week begins, and Karu is home alone with Kira away on a trip. He's excited to finally eat some junk food without his sister around to nag him. Suddenly, the doorbell rings. It's Subaru, asking if she can stay at his place and serve as his butler. Confused, Karu calls Kanade and learns that Subaru really can't stay at Kanade's house for the time being. Hearing Subaru's belly rumble, Karu decides to let her in and feed her first. After breakfast, Subaru insists on introducing herself to Karu's parents and is shocked to learn that his mother is overseas and his sister is away. Realizing they'll be alone together, Subaru's shock quickly turns to determination. She's set on correcting Karu's lazy attitude. Meanwhile, on her trip, Kira runs into a wild bear and decides to fight it head-on. Back at home, Subaru throws Karu around the dojo as part of her training. Covering, Kira completely changes her behavior, trying to appear more feminine to appeal to Subaru. She even pinches Karu to ensure he doesn't reveal anything about her violent side. Suddenly, Kanade appears, dressed in a maid's uniform, and announces that she'll be serving as his maid from now on. But Karu can't handle having Kanade in the house, so he quickly throws her out, using the excuse that he already has a butler looking after him. Kanade, however, takes this as a challenge. Kanade decides to settle the matter of who should stay in Karu's home by challenging Subaru to a showdown. During their standoff, however, Karu suddenly collapses, sending Kira into a panic as she fears he might die just like their father did. Once they have him comfortably in bed, Kanade deduces that it's probably just a cold since he has a slight fever. When Karu regains consciousness, Subaru does her best to nurse him back to health. Unfortunately, she goes way overboard, making things even harder for his already exhausted body. In a quiet moment together, Kanade reveals that she originally came to bring Subaru back home. It turns out Subaru has been at odds with her father since the day he beat up Karu. Tired of their ongoing Cold War, Subaru's father kicked both of them out of the mansion until they reconcile. To resolve the issue, Kanade brings Karu to the tent where Subaru's father is staying, hoping he can help bring Subaru back home. However, when Kiru confronts Subaru's father, they end up arguing. Subaru arrives, grabs Karu by the hand, and drags him back to the house. When her father tries to stop her, she tells him she hates him, refusing even to look at him. Seeing this, Karu intervenes, insisting that Subaru is taking things too far. He reminds her that the beating he took wasn't that serious and urges her to forgive her father. But Subaru refuses to leave Karu's side, confessing how terrified she was when she saw how Kira reacted to his collapse. She realizes that Karu's father must have passed away suddenly, just like her mother. At that moment, Karu's cold worsens, and he collapses again. As he struggles to stay conscious, he sees Subaru crying with worry. Determined to reassure her, he forces himself to stand and tells her he won't die so easily, so she doesn't need to worry so much. This calms Subaru down a bit, and when Karu finally passes out from the fever, she gently carries him back to bed. Back at school, Subaru scolds Karu for not resting properly and for not letting her nurse him back to health. Despite her frustration, she's pleased with his promise not to die on her. Although she wants to spend more time with him, she needs to return home because her father has caught a cold as well, so she's now nursing him. After Subaru leaves, Kanade appears and thanks Karu for helping to smooth things over between Subaru and her father. She admits she found the way he handled himself despite his sickness quite impressive, and rewards him with a kiss, which promptly triggers yet another nosebleed. On his way to school, Karu gets run over by a girl on a scooter. She's shocked when she realizes he's completely unharmed despite the impact. Karu quickly notices that she attends the same school as he does, but she refuses to introduce herself. When Karu realizes that his glasses have flown off and landed between the girl's thighs, he tries to retrieve them. However, she misunderstands his intentions and assumes he's trying to do something lewd, so she fights back. In the scuffle, the glasses go flying again, and she eventually figures out what he was really after. But instead of calming down, she recognizes him as Kira's brother and promptly strikes him down, holding a grudge against him for becoming friends with Subaru. She introduces herself as Masamune, a member of the same club as Kira, and knocks him out. When Karu regains consciousness, he finds himself in the school nurse's office with Subaru watching over him. It turns out Subaru found him unconscious on the way to school and brought him in, assuming he got run over. He reassures Subaru that he's okay. Relieved, Subaru wonders why Karu has been avoiding Kanade since the end of Golden Week. Remembering the kiss, Karu decides to keep it a secret. While he's thinking of what to say, Subaru asks if he'd like to accompany her during the upcoming school festival. He quickly agrees, telling her there's no need to worry about it so much. Karu then brings up what's been bothering him, mentioning that it was his first kiss. Although he's referring to the kiss he shared with Kanade, Subaru mistakenly thinks he's talking about the time her mistress performed mouth-to-mouth resuscitation on him when he fainted at the water park. When he mentions that he'd like to redo it, Subaru misunderstands and puckers her lips, ready for a kiss. While Karu is still trying to figure out what's going on, Kanade bursts in and interrupts them. Karu tries to make a quick escape, but Kanade jumps on top of him, making sure he can't move. She informs him that for the school festival, their class will be doing a cross-dressing cafe, which will allow Subaru to come to school dressed as a girl. Subaru is excited about this, and Karu finds himself looking forward to it as well. On his way back to the classroom, Karu runs into Masamune, who calls him up to the roof for a private conversation. Once there, She asks him to be her boyfriend until the end of the school festival. It turns out she's a member of the Subaru fan club, and they're planning to wage war against another fan club that supports boy love at the festival. To throw them off, she wants everyone to see her together with Karu, who is believed to be Subaru's boyfriend. If he refuses, she threatens to spread a picture of Subaru dressed as a girl, which she secretly took during their date at the arcade. On the other hand, if he agrees, she promises to ensure that the Subaru fan club stops targeting him, realizing that this might expose Subaru and ruin her future. Karu is caught in a difficult situation. As Kanade's butler, Karu reluctantly agrees to Masamune's plan. Just then, Subaru arrives on the roof, worried because Karu hasn't returned to class yet. Masamune quickly hides behind Karu, too timid to face Subaru directly. Karu explains that the girl with him is his new girlfriend, which Masamune confirms when Subaru confronts her. She adds that Karu will be spending time with her during the school festival. Hearing this, Subaru explodes in rage, calling Karu a liar and pummeling him before storming off. Afterward, Masamune drags Karu on a shopping trip, forcing him to buy a swimsuit for her, as her classroom's theme for the festival is related to swimming. They argue, and in the chaos, Karu accidentally falls into the changing booth, catching Masamune mid-change. Despite the awkwardness, he ends up buying the swimsuit for her and even walks her home when he learns she doesn't have enough money for the train ticket. On the way, she reminds him that they're a couple, even if only for a short while, and asks him to trust her no matter what. Although confused, Karu agrees and promises to trust her. As preparations for the school festival ramp up, everyone seems excited except for Subaru, who is still upset about the situation with Karu. When the festival finally arrives, Subaru is a big hit, wearing a traditional Chinese dress. However, she struggles to enjoy herself due to her lingering feelings about what happened with Karu. Meeting up with Masamune, Karu lets her take the lead, and they grab some snacks from the festival stands. Feeling guilty, Masamune offers to cook him a proper meal in the future, which he accepts. Just as she's about to feed him a snack, Subaru suddenly appears, declaring that as his friend, she won't let anything untoward happen. From there on out, both Subaru and Masamune cling tightly to Karu, making things even more difficult for him. They eventually find themselves in Kira's classroom, which has an animal cafe theme. Masamune feels increasingly miserable as everyone else seems to be having fun. Finally, she sends Karu away, telling him to forget about their deal and go have fun with Subaru instead. After he leaves, Karu is pulled aside by a person in a sheep mascot costume. The mascot turns out to be Nakuru, a member of Subaru's Boy Love fan club. She warns him about the upcoming battle between the fan clubs and says he's in danger if the other club wins. She also reveals that Masamune has been lying to him and lacks the authority to control the fan club. Just then, Masamune jumps in and knocks Nakuru out. Karu, now suspicious, questions Masamune about the truth. Instead of answering, she suddenly strikes at him. But Subaru jumps in to protect Karu, causing Masamune to flee in tears. Determined to get to the bottom of things, Subaru and Karu question Nakuru when she regains consciousness. Thanks to her, they discover the location of the battle between the two fan clubs. When they arrive, they are shocked to find that the leader of the violent fan club is none other than Kanade herself. Karu is outraged by this revelation. Karu's scream of anger blows their cover, but Kanade quickly steps in to protect him from the angry mob, reminding everyone that fighting must wait until after the showdown. The showdown turns out to be a trivia quiz about Subaru, with both Subaru and Karu joining forces on the side of the Boy Love Club, which opposes the violent club. The battle is intense, with the scores nearly tied. The final question becomes the deciding factor. Kanade asks for the name of Subaru's first kiss, begging Subaru to help Karu so he doesn't get lynched by the mob. Reluctantly, Subaru agrees to reveal the identity of her first kiss. However, this backfires when the big reveal turns out to be Karu himself. since he doesn't remember it. Kanade sheds some light on the situation and plays a recording of their interaction. It turns out that when Karu was unconscious at the water park, Subaru gave him mouth-to-mouth resuscitation, which ended up being her first kiss. Though this revelation secures victory for the Boy Love Club, the other club becomes enraged at Karu and starts attacking him with murderous intent. In a desperate attempt to save himself, Karu quickly confesses that the girl he loves is actually Kanade. In return, she swiftly rejects him and walks away. This confuses the angry mob, who now feel too awkward to continue attacking the guy who just got publicly rejected. Karu hurries after Kanade, thanking her for going along with his improvised plan. Kanade scolds Karu for making such a fake public confession, pointing out how hurtful it is. As punishment, she gives him an intimate hug and whispers that she loves him directly into his ear, which causes him to have a nosebleed in response. After composing himself, Karu wonders why Masamune wasn't present during the showdown. Kanade reveals that Masamune actually resigned from the club just before the festival. Concerned, Karu quickly dashes to Masamune's favorite spot, the school roof. Sure enough, he finds her there, moping by herself. Masamune confesses everything, revealing that she wanted to get close to Subaru because he seemed like a lone wolf, much like herself. But then Subaru changed when he started hanging out with Karu, even becoming more girly. Masamune wanted to see if she could change too, but instead, she ended up hating herself even more. Hearing this, Karu reminds her that the festival isn't over yet, which means they're still a couple. He takes her away to enjoy the festival's finale together. There, Karu tells her that he would still like to taste the cooking she promised to make for him, which stirs Masamune out of her self-deprecating state. Subaru and Kanade eventually join them, and Subaru apologizes for the harsh treatment she gave Karu earlier. Before Kanade can explain everything about the blackmail and the fake confession, Subaru feels grateful to Karu for going so far to cover for her. Masamune tries to take advantage of the situation to sneak away, but Karu stops her and introduces her properly to Subaru, calling her his friend. Subaru quickly assures Masamune that any friend of Karu's is a friend of hers, breaking the ice between them. This proves to be exactly what Masamune needed. And from that day on, she becomes a more cheerful person as she finally makes some friends. With summer vacation in full swing, Karu is on his way home when he runs into Subaru. She offers him a drink, which he gladly accepts, but then suddenly invites him to a look with her. Before he can figure out what's happening, he starts feeling drowsy. Subaru reassures him that everything will be okay, but admits she cannot defy her mistress's orders. Realizing he's been drugged, Karu can't fight the drowsiness and falls asleep. When Karu wakes up, he finds Kanade watching over him. It turns out she has kidnapped him to her family's luxurious hot spring beach resort. After an argument with her parents, she decided to flee from home and is staying there in secret. To keep their stay discreet, she told the staff they are eloping, so they will be sharing a room during their stay. This makes Karu nervous, and when Subaru comes to fetch Kanade, she becomes upset at how close they seem. That evening, Nakiru presents Subaru with a special service ticket she acquired from Kanade, requesting that Subaru read a book out loud. The book is a boy love light novel written by Nakiru, featuring Subaru and Karu as the main characters. Although Subaru starts reading, the nature of the novel becomes too overwhelming, and she throws the book out the window. Waking up in the middle of the night, Karu is startled to find himself surrounded by barely clad girls, a collection of what happened during the night. Later that evening, Subaru pretends to be her cousin again, so she can wear a yukata and join the summer festival with everyone else. However, Karu doesn't get a chance to spend time with her because Kanade pulls him away, followed closely by Masamune, who doesn't want Kanade to have him all to herself. The two of them end up competing in the festival's various games. When Karu notices Subaru is missing from the group, Kanade reveals where she went and sends him in the right direction. On his way, he encounters Subaru's father, who is annoyed by Karu and wants to send him away. When Kiru insists that he is friends with Subaru, her father reluctantly reveals that this is the path to his late wife's grave. The anniversary of her death is approaching, and Subaru came to pay her respects. Kanade had to stay behind because bringing Subaru along would have prevented her from visiting the grave. At that moment, Kanade arrives and sends Subaru's father on an errand, allowing Karu to see Subaru. When he finds her, Subaru is emotional and has difficulty holding back tears. She explains that her mother was always worried about her not having any friends, and she wanted to introduce Karu as her first friend. Since her mother has passed away, that introduction is no longer possible. Seeing Subaru's distress, Karu overcomes his phobia and gives her a comforting hug, assuring her that she can still introduce him to her mother in spirit. Grateful for his kindness, Subaru calms down and introduces him to her mother's grave. Karu, reaching his limit, faints. When he wakes up, it's time for the great battle royale of the summer festival. Since Subaru won the Yukata Beauty Contest, she promised to kiss the winner of the battle royale. Karu decides he needs to win to get the kiss, but things don't go as planned. Nakuru, having gotten drunk on carbonated beverages, begins stripping everyone she encounters. While Karu deals with Nakuru, Kanade arrives, having already taken out the other participants. With a clever trick, she manages to defeat both Nakuru and Karu, winning the battle royale and receiving a kiss from Subaru. After recovering from Kanade's knockout hug, Karu finds himself resting on Subaru's lap, relieved that things turned out well. They watch the fireworks together, with Subaru promising that they will be friends forever. However, Subaru suddenly stands up and declares that she doesn't want them to just be friends, surprising Karu. Later, Karu works part-time at a maid cafe with Masamune, who helps him with both summer homework and funding. Karu is surprised to learn that Masamune enjoys working in a place like this, especially the maid uniforms. The cafe manager mistakenly believes that Masamune and Karu are a couple, but Karu corrects her, stating they are just friends. During his break, Karu reflects on Subaru's words. Before he can fully process his thoughts, he is called to serve another customer. To his surprise, the customer is Kanade, who spotted him and Masamune working there and decided to rent them out for the whole day. She does so to avoid Subaru and to see her friends scramble, starting with ordering food and full maid service, determined to experience everything the cafe has to offer. Meanwhile, Subaru is mistakenly thought to be a worker at a butler cafe and is quickly drafted into helping out. Just as Masamune finishes serving a meal to Kanade, Kira, and Nakuru enter the cafe. They're surprised to see Masamune and Karu already working there. Subaru, admired for her exceptional skills, is overwhelmed with work to cover the damages she caused while trying to escape earlier. Meanwhile, Kanade wins a fighting video game against Kira and enjoys additional maid service. Curious about what else she can get them to do, Karu decides he's had enough and heads to the kitchen to wash dishes. On his way, he trips and falls on Masamune. Overcome by his phobia, he faints. When he regains consciousness, the cafe manager asks if everything is okay. Not wanting to reveal his phobia, Karu tries to make an excuse, but Kanade quickly fabricates a story about him having a huge maid fetish. The girls working there panic, thinking they've been working with a pervert. Despite Karu's attempts to explain, Kanade insists the only way to prove his innocence is for him to not be turned on by Masamune, exposing her maid garter belt. Although reluctant, Masamune eventually agrees and exposes herself under pressure from Kanade. Just then, Subaru arrives at the cafe, relieved to have finally tracked down Kanade. The two leave immediately, with Karu following to chat with Subaru. Kanade decides to give them some time alone and makes a phone call. Karu asks Subaru about her earlier comment about wanting to be more than friends. Subaru clarifies that she meant they should be the best of friends. Karu is relieved and happily agrees to be her best friend. Despite this, Subaru doesn't feel completely happy, and they rush to catch up with Kanade. Curious about the phone call, Subaru learns it was to clear up the misunderstanding. Kanade instructs Karu to return to the cafe to finish his shift. There, Karu has another run-in with Masamune, who accidentally reveals how much she values him as a friend. Meanwhile, Kanade finds a group of geeks playing adult games on school grounds during summer break and tasks them with creating a game in record time. Using her charm and deceit, she convinces them to work hard to meet the deadline. As the much-anticipated day arrives, Kira wakes up full of energy and heads to Kingaru's room, only to find him still asleep. She decides to go out on her own, leaving a note for him to find. The excitement surrounding the day becomes clear when Kira arrives at Masamune's apartment, where Masamune and Nakuru are hosting a birthday party for her. At the party, Masamune has prepared delicious food, and the festivities include a spooky ghost story that scares Kira. But the fear fades quickly with birthday gifts, including a life-size Subai pillow and a live performance of Nakiru's steam novel. When Nakiru's performance becomes too intense for Masamune, she decides to stop and tosses Nakiru aside. The party continues with a special surprise. Kanade has rented out the maid cafe for a private celebration. After everyone, except Kira, changes into maid uniforms, they present her with a birthday cake and sing for her. Kira reflects on how Karu has always made sure she was happy on her birthdays, even though she often repaid his kindness with wrestling violence. Kanade reveals that the game she had the geeks create is a fighting game featuring all of them as playable characters, which they play to great enjoyment. When the party ends, Kanade and Subaru give Kira a ride home. During the ride, Kira shares that on her last birthday, Karu forgot and went to the theater with a friend. When he returned, she greeted him with a rough reprimand. But despite that, he always supported and encouraged her on important days. This year's celebration was already amazing, so she wouldn't be hurt if he forgot again. However, when she returns home, she finds another surprise. Karu has prepared a large plush toy for her to practice her killer moves on, making up for last year. As the second semester begins, Subaru seems distracted. Kanade tries to find out if Subaru's issues are related to her relationship with Karu. While changing, Kanade questions Subaru, but receives no response and decides to try a different approach. Karu gives Karu the usual wake-up call, and when he gets ready for school, Subaru is already waiting for him. Despite Subaru's trust that Karu won't reveal her true identity, she regrets not curing his phobia and plans to increase the intensity of their training going forward. Suddenly, Masamune rushes in on her scooter, nearly crashing into Subaru and Karu. Subaru, quick to react, pushes Karu out of the way, ending up on top of him. This close encounter reminds Karu of the kiss they once shared. As an apology for her reckless entrance, Masamune offers them the leftovers of her breakfast toast before hurrying off to school. At school, Kanade invites Karu and Subaru to join her for lunch. They happily agree, and Kanade treats them to a delicious bento box. However, things take a turn when Subaru starts acting strangely after consuming a tiny amount of wine mixed into the food by Kanade. The wine makes Subaru tipsy, and she begins clinging to Karu and licking his neck where Kanade had smeared some sauce. This makes Karu's nose bleed, and he tries his best to calm Subaru down, reminding her that they are best friends and should not act inappropriately. Subaru, however, becomes upset, and eventually, she passes out from the alcohol. Karu carries her to the nurse's office before returning to class. Back in the classroom, Kanade begins making cute hiccup sounds that resemble cat noises. Noticing Kanade's embarrassment, Karu pretends that he is the one making the sounds, shifting the focus away from her and allowing her to leave for the nurse's office. There, Kanade bribes the nurse to leave them alone and thanks Karu for covering for her. Subaru wakes up and explains that Kanade's hiccups are cursed. Just hearing them can cause people to act out, which has previously led to incidents needing police intervention. As Subaru's hiccups start affecting her too, Kanade sends Subaru home to fetch special tools to help stop the hiccups. But in reality, Kanade only wanted Subaru to leave so she could have some private time with Karu. Alone, Kanade throws Karu onto the bed and teases him, trying to make him reveal what happened between him and Subaru. Karu resists and escapes, only to run into Subaru, who has returned with the tools only to find out that Kanade faked the hiccups to get the information she wanted. As Kanade teases Karu about her deception, she trips and falls down the stairs. Subaru, rushing to protect her, arrives too late, and Kanade sprains her ankle. She is taken to her family's hospital, where Subaru continues to apologize for not being able to protect her. Even though Kanade is not upset, Subaru feels responsible for the accident. Kiru tries to comfort Subaru, but Kanade's father arrives and announces that Subaru has been removed from her position as Kanade's butler. From now on, Subaru no longer needs to hide her true identity and can live as a normal high school girl. Despite her injury, Kanade arrives, determined to overturn the decision, and insists she doesn't want any other butler but Subaru. Hearing this, Subaru stops her and apologizes for not meeting her expectations, expressing how much serving her made her happy before running off alone. Kanade chases after her and eventually catches up. Despite his phobia, he gives Subaru a hug and offers to be her outlet for frustration, encouraging her to return and continue as Kanade's butler. This makes Subaru happy, but instead of accepting his offer, she leans in and kisses him, causing him to have a severe nosebleed and blackout. Masamune finds him and wakes him up after receiving a call from Kanade. Masamune gives him a ride on her scooter to Kanade's family estate, where he finds Subaru sitting on a bench, watching the fireworks. The fact that she is no longer a butler weighs heavily on her, so Kanade reassures her that he will remain her friend regardless. Subaru appreciates the comfort, but decides not to return home that night, so they opt to spend the night at the inn. Since the staff there doesn't know Subaru's secret, they end up sharing the same room. They attempt to fall asleep, but find themselves unable to. They start chatting, and Subaru, being bold, asks if Karu wants to do more than kiss. This leads Karu to fantasize about everything he could do with Subaru, but his condition prevents direct contact. He tells her to hold back for now until they are both ready to take the next step. The following day, Subaru returns home, welcomed back by Kanade. Meanwhile, Kira confronts Karu for disappearing without a word. At school, Kanade arrives without Subaru, announcing that she has transferred to another school. The news shocks everyone, especially Subaru's fan clubs. However, Subaru has actually transferred into another class, disguised as a girl and taking on the fake identity of Kanade's cousin. She quickly forms a group with Kira and Nakiru, who are now her new classmates. When Karu runs into her in the hallway, he boldly asks Subaru to eat lunch with him, surprising Kira as it's the first time she's seen him interested in another girl. Masamune observes the situation in secret, puzzled by Subaru's new female disguise. Without Subaru around, Kanade relies on Karu for help with everything she needs. During lunch break, Karu manages to get some alone time with Subaru. Subaru confesses that she misses being Kanade's butler, realizing how lonely she feels without her mistress. Being a butler gave her purpose, and she feels empty without it. Karu promises to help and heads to the headquarters of Subaru's fan clubs. There, he persuades them to sign a petition for Subaru to be reinstated as Kanade's butler. Seeing Subaru overcome with emotion, almost everyone in school signs the petition, which is sent directly to Kanade's father. The next day, Subaru arrives at school with Kanade, revealing that the petition was successful, and she is back serving as Kanade's butler. She thanks everyone for their support and explains that her cousin has transferred schools again, a story that only Masamune questions, wondering why everyone believes such an obvious lie. That night, Karu receives a call from Subaru asking him to meet her in the park. When he arrives, he finds Subaru dressed as a girl. She wants to thank him properly for his help, not just as a best friend or butler, but as a girl. As Kiru hesitates, Kanade jumps out of hiding and encourages Subaru to take the lead. Subaru then cups Karu's cheeks and gives him a proper kiss, which leaves him stunned. That's all for today. If you enjoyed our video, give us a like and subscribe to our channel for more amazing content.